go again. I'm going to play some tower defense. Some tower defense that I made. So let's just get going here. To allow me to lower the soundtrack, raise the soundtrack, mute the soundtrack, advance the songs, go back to the previous song. So, sound. There's sound in the game. Sounds when you click. Just like the game started. And here's the game. Boom. Pause this for a second to discuss some of this. You can see it down in the corner, it changes. Effects volume gets changed too. Okay, so everything that I've added, as you can see, I've added a UI, the health up here, the cache up here. These are all buttons that click and advance the time. This does a pause or click and slow down time too. This is a pause button that does the universal pause where I can see on the screen. There's also the escape pause, which allows me to leave the game. These right here, this does snapping. So when I lay down a weapon or lay down a tower, like here, let me sell this one. If I lay down a tower, the snapping is turned off. If I hit S, it is turned on and it snaps to the grid. Hit the G button, it hides the grid. So if you don't want to see it, but it's still there, you can hide it or not see it. B button is for bullet blur. R button will show you the range on the towers. So like right now you can see the range. If it's turned off, you can't see the range, and that's just a quality of life thing. Got the media player down here that does tips. The volume control goes up and down, obviously on keyboard command and everything. The tips will basically run through all the commands that are available with keyboards right now. I added unlocking a new tower. It hits harder, it fires a little bit slower, and has longer range. Yeah, so let's play a little bit here. Let's see this music play. The music is from a guy called Muffin Lad. His name is Ryan McKinney, and apparently he has passed away. He's no longer with us, and his family, or whoever's in charge of his estate, has been kind enough to put all his music out on SoundCloud and make it available with a Creative Commons license. So I found the one song, and I thought it sounded great, and I was like, so I researched on that artist and found a bunch more songs, and Ryan McKinney has become the artist of the soundtrack for my game here. He's wherever he's at in the universe now. Thank you, bud. Thank you, family of Ryan McKinney, for providing such great music out there for free. Because I don't, I'm making this more as a project than I am as a entrepreneurial thing. As a hobby. So I can't afford to pay an artist, but a game is not good without music. It's not good without some kind of soundtrack. And we'll listen to a little bit of that, play a little bit of game. Then I'll go into a little bit of the code, and then we'll call it a video. It's not going to be a long one. I'm just updating with where I'm at with the game right now. And as you can see, the stats change when you hover over them. It shows the value and the damage and stuff, and it goes back to player stats. Eventually, I am going to have this checkerboarded area down here set up to where when you upgrade your tower health like that, this is going to change the graphic, become a little shack, then a little house, then a little castle. Depending on how much health you have, it's going to change the graphic of the end mark there. slow it down to bullet time. Oh, the blur is turned on. Turn on and off. You can see the bullets. Pretty cool. Bullet time. Matrix style. Turn up the speed. Okay, I'm just going to let some of this soundtrack play, and I'm going to play a little bit of game. Just still kind of play testing. These values, this all has to be adjusted and balanced. It is not balanced right now. But it's starting to look like a game. It looks like a game now, you know, it's got UI. I'll smoke a little bit of pot because it's 2:34 in the AM. And that's what you do at 2:34 in the AM. You unlock your B tower. See, it's got higher damage, higher velocity, higher range. No, higher damage, higher range, lower fire rate. Velocity is the same. The range, as you can see. The range reach is about what's the same with that. And I am going to add, you know, like a C tower and a D tower and all that, and other towers that do things like slow down mobs that are in front of them, or mobs that put like a damage over time effect, like fire or poison, you know, that will continue to damage these guys after they go past them. I'm going to put those kind of things in here. I'm going to also put different enemies in here that right now I have just the one enemy, and I already do have code that changes the enemy into other enemies that, you know, provide more experience and more health. That's actually, the way the sell value works is it takes half of the value that you put into leveling up and adds it to the value of the tower that you initially bought it for. So this is not the full cash value that you have put into the guy, that 325. It's half the cash value basically, but you can still earn back the cash value. You just have to let them get to the red level, and once they're at red level, this value starts raising based upon XP. And it creates mobs that you can basically sell back to get a bunch of money to upgrade a bunch of other things, you know, so it... Like I said in the other video, I want to make a slow burn tower here, you know. I want this to be multiple hours of playing the one tower level, you know, and off to a good start on that. I'm going to mute my mic here for a second, listen to some music play. the range went up by 5, the damage went up by 5, and the fire rate went up by about, I don't know, 30%, whatever. Now that he's red, you can see his value is at 20. That's half the value of leveling him up, but as he gains XP, that value is going to go up. See, his value is raising now. So this becomes like a cash battery that I can sell back to upgrade other things when I run out of cash, and I will, because the cash value on upgrading these, it becomes really expensive. So if you have a whole bunch of them here and they all need to level up, you're not going to be able to afford it without selling one of these. So that's kind of the system I want to get going here. Is you use certain towers, level them up, and sell them off to level up other towers, and constantly changing where the strength on your board is. So I can skip through the songs. I'm going to play my favorite song on this this one right here. This is my favorite song of the songs added to the soundtrack. I'm going to mute the shooting. You can just hear the soundtrack. Turn it up. Make sure it's still recording, and it is. was an artist. I don't know what he did as a regular job. I don't know the guy. I mean, I just randomly searched SoundCloud, found Creative Commons licensed songs that I could play on here, and that's where I found this artist. But apparently, music was not his, you know, main vocation in life, and it should have been. He's a pretty talented artist. He made some cool techno type music here. It's, I don't know.
how it's playing with the current values, and if something seems too strong or too whatever, you know, I just have to keep coming and playing and adjusting. That's all I can do. Adjust the rates, make things cheaper or more expensive, make things do less damage or more damage, make things faster or slower. It's all about balance. The low levels are nothing to XP, but this is like 1,000 to level up at level 6. Or 2,400 at level 6. If all these were level 6, that would eat up this 10,000 right here in one buy. And I'll show you the code on that in a bit.
Oh, Catchy One, new song. That still blows my mind. I still can't believe I put all this together. I've been playing video games my entire life. I've always assumed it was a process that, you know, was well beyond one person's capability. You know, but that's what technological advancement is doing with the, you know, the shorthand editors and all that, you know. In another 10 years, I'll be able to click a button, one button, and have a game. It just happens to be Tower Defense Week on Steam, too.
Yeah.
Popping out of love. What it is we're having 100-degree heat during the day here. It's 2 o'clock in the morning now, but that creates these nights of just like pop can humidity. Like we're living in a pop can, you know. It's just all the condensation on the side of your lungs and in your throat and everything just creates a constant gargle. It's so much humidity, which is rare for, you know, being a mile above sea level and this far inland as we are here in Colorado. Colorado is actually a fairly arid and fairly dry place. It's borderline high desert. We get quite a bit of moisture that comes down off the Rockies, and that kind of offsets the arid conditions. It gives us a little bit of green, but this is a really dry place. It's the reason, you know, people like Doc Holliday, you know, came to Telluride, Colorado for his tuberculosis. You know, the drier air made it easier for him to breathe and stuff. Love Colorado. Love it here, man. It's the best place in the country. I've been all over this country, and I've been to Canada, been right to the border of Mexico, but, you know, and I'm telling you, you know, in the continental United States, Colorado is easily top 3 overall living. I mean, it's, as far as like the temperature and just like the, it has nothing to do with the people. I mean, if you're going to factor in the people, you're going to get screwed anywhere you look in the world. Is playing or what? What's up with this song? I gotta look and see why Beautiful Nightmares is not playing. I don't know. We'll skip up. It's a tainted brand muffin. Yeah, but as far as places to live, the weather here is just unbelievably beautiful. We have all 4 seasons, which, you know, a lot of places in the United States or in the world, you know, it'll skip right over. It'll go right from winter to summer, or from, you know, summer to winter, and you don't get that in between because, for whatever reason, I'm not a climatologist. Just, you know, that's why they call it colorful Colorado. It's a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful place to live. But don't come here. You know, whenever you read an article about how awesome it is here, just remember me saying it's not awesome, it sucks, we don't want you here. I'm just kidding. No, we want you here. Come on down. Yeah, I'm torn on all that. That, you know, more people is awesome because, you know, there's going to be cool people in there, but more people sucks because there's going to be assholes in there. You know, I don't know. I'm all for more people. I like progress. I like seeing new things being built. I don't know. I want to pave paradise and put up a parking lot. I gotta figure out why that song Beautiful Nightmares wasn't playing. I'll do that off camera later. No, it has nothing to do with politics or anything like that. There's a reason that all of the gross domestic product, the GDP, and all of the people are in certain areas of the United States. And that's because those places are better weather-wise and temperature, you know, the atmosphere, the air, I'm telling you, you drive around and geographically speaking, you get off the plane in, let's say, San Jose, California. You get off the plane there, and then you get off the plane in, I don't know, Grand Island, Nebraska, and you will notice the difference. You will see immediately why people live in San Jose and why they don't in Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska, I don't want to crack on it too bad because, you know, it is my neighbor, and you know, there's lots of beautiful places there and stuff like that, but it just doesn't stack up in quantity of comparison. That there's so much more in certain places, like upstate New York is another one that is, you know, New York is populous not just because of its, you know, relation to how the country started and everything like that. It's also just how amazingly beautiful it is up there. With they have swamps, they have mountains, they have you don't imagine that when you think New York, but upstate New York is incredible. It is. I don't know. There's a reason. I'm not even going to get into the weeds of politics. I'm just talking about the quality of life related to the environment, you know, the natural environment. There's a reason people live in the places they do. And there's a reason all the money is in those places. And Colorado is one of them. You know, if you look on all the maps, it's, you know, for having only one major city compared to like all the other states like Texas, New York, Ohio, California, they're all major states that have multiple cities in them that are considered huge, you know, and we only have one here in Colorado, but I think that also plays into the factor is Colorado has a regional effect where, like Bronco fandom, the fans of the Broncos, the Denver Broncos, it goes, you know, into multiple, all the way up into Idaho and all the way down into New Mexico, and it's because there isn't any, you know, teams in those areas to compete with them. That's kind of what, I don't know, Colorado is, it's just awesome. I love it here. It really is. And our governor is, you know, politics aside, I'm, you know, he's a Democrat, but that's not even important. What's important is the guy is fucking awesome. We have great jobs and great. Everybody here is. I don't know. I see the news reports about the big city and and all that. It's just not that way here. There's not a street in Denver you can't walk down. There isn't. I mean, even in 5 Points, which used to be like the historic hardcore ghetto, and you can go down there now. I don't know. Love my town. Love my state. Glad I live here. But this all started with the gurgle in my neck because there's an unnatural amount of humidity in the air. Alright, we've done 30 minutes of game here, and you're not going to see anything different. These things just get upgraded, and I can sell them. Like, this was 8,000 phones already. I'm going to have to adjust that down. I'm going to have to work on the economy here and everything, and I am. Every video that you see of this, things are going to be changed to balance to try to make this work. I got to add more towers. Got to figure out Beautiful Nightmares, that song. Anyway, let's call it a game and escape here and show you this other menu that I did. When you quit the game, boom, you get the quit menu, and check him out. He's awesome. I love that. Oh, game over. Got your stats up here for the last game. Click to continue, and you go back to the start menu. And that's pretty much it. Start the game back up. Exit the game. And we'll just exit the game. Go in here to gamemaker here. And I'm going to go over a couple things that I missed in the last video and cover a couple of things that have changed since the last video. First off, in the last video I did not cover the bullet. I noticed that when I was watching the video. And so we'll get into a little bit of that. We get the tower ID. We need the tower ID. It's passed across the tower to the bullet and into the target. And the reason for that is because it tracks things at different spots. Whether or not the tower levels up, whether or not the enemy loses health. All of that is tracked through the tower ID. The tower level, obviously, you need to know that. Damage comes from a universal global that I have, and the multiplication of this is actually done in the tower. That inside the tower here, at the start here, there's adjustments for the damage and the velocity and all that, and that gets added to the bullet. The bullet, basically, it starts off with the default alpha, and it tells the tower. But if the blur is on, it takes the alpha and multiplies it by 33%, so it makes it basically blurred. The pause event does a speed and adjust speed. Now, I'm going to get into this adjust speed here. What happens here is the way speed and timers and all that work in this game is they operate on a step. So every step, the speed equals how many pixels you're going to move in that one step. So by adjusting this speed, by doing a multiplication on the speed amount, either lower or higher, I can change the speed, and I have that running through a function, and I'll get into that right here. So the function takes in the speed and the type for the first one there is the path speed. So what it does is it looks and sees if game speed is 1, it adjusts it at the slowest speed, which is a multiplication of 0.25. So it takes the current speed, multiplies it by 0.25, so you get 25% of it. Same with slower, it does it at half. At faster, it does a multiplication of 1.5, so it gives it 150%. And at the fastest, it gives 200%. This way, it adjusts the speed whenever I can put that function in wherever I'm using speed to adjust the path speed based upon the universal speed. And that function is also used in timers, and I'll show that here in a second. So what this does is this all right here sets the speed, and with the pause, if it's at pause, it's at 0. Otherwise, it's going to adjust the speed according to the game speed. And you want that happening every step because, you know, that's just how speed works. Speed doesn't work where you set a setting and then it just knows to do that. No, at every step it's going to adjust based on the speed is the distance it's going to go per pixels on that one step. So it needs to look at this step every time and get that value. Otherwise, it's not going to be moving. The target is a collision check on the enemy. The enemy is a parent target of all enemies. So the collision check, by using instance place here, I get back all the information of what I have collided with, and I store that in the target variable. Then I look at the target variable and I check. If it's not no one, which means there is something here in this target, then it does all this. It destroys the bullet because the bullet's done. It hit its target, it's done. It's going to upgrade the tower with the tower ID. The target, this is sending to the target. This is sending to the jock out there on the board, telling it what tower hit it. This right here updates the tower with the experience based upon the value of the target. Because, see, this is getting the target's value of XP hit and adding it to the tower value. And this way I keep all the values separate where they need to be. The value of the target is in the target, and the value of the experience is in the tower, where they're supposed to be. And that's key, because you could have all this done just in this bullet. This bullet could do everything, and those towers and everything could do nothing. But then when you make changes in the tower, you have to come back and change the bullet. And I didn't want that, so I got this set up where the target, this is the target health. This would be the jock, and it gets updated with the damage from the tower. So this is the tower's damage, and this is the target's health. This is a flag that sends to the target that tells it that it got hit. This is just a simple flag to adjust the image index to show a quick flash of red or whatever that the target got hit before it goes back to the normal index. It's a one step flag. This counts the total shots of hit in the whole game, so this constantly gets incremented whenever anything shoots or anything gets hit. This gets incremented, and so I'm going to add this to anything that causes a hit event, and that'll update the stat for the universal stats. And this updates the tower stat, because there's two different stats there. There's all of the towers combined, and then there's the individual tower, and that's what these are. And an important event with bullets and stuff like that is you want to destroy when you leave the room. And the reason for that is you can end up with tens of thousands of these off screen, still technically counting off pixel distance, because just because it leaves the room doesn't mean it's gone unless you tell it to be gone. So you use this other outside room event, instant is destroyed. That means that the second the bullet leaves the room, it's destroyed. And that's all that's going on in the bullet there. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more with this adjust speed. Okay, the type 2, this is a little bit different here. This adjusts timers. Now, say in the tower here, we've got a timer. Let's go down here to the bullet shooting event. Come on. Okay, this does a shot timer. Every time the shot timer reaches 0, it fires, and then it resets the shot timer right here with an FPS times fire rate, and that gets the whole new value, runs back through. The FPS fire rate defaults to 3, so this would be 3 divided by FPS, which would give us a total of 20. So in 20 steps, every 20 steps, this resets. Now to adjust time, if I want to adjust up, I can just add to this. I can say that every step add 2 instead of 1, and that will effectively double the speed on this. But to go down, you have to do something different. So I wrote that into the program here, because you can't tell the code to do half a step. It's going to do the whole step every time, no matter what. So the way you do that is you tell it to fire this shot timer increment every 4 steps or every 2 steps, and that simulates the effect of cutting the steps in the half. So when I go in here to the adjust speed, what this does right here is it checks if game speed is 1, and we know we want to get at 25%, so this does if the steps, so I have a global step counter, it's counting up the steps, it's constantly going, it doesn't get reset. If the step is divisible by 4 and that equals 0 or whatever, in other words, if this code equals 0, it's going to tell it to fire the speed -1 event. But it only does, since this is on 4, it's only going to do this at technically every 4 frames, or every 4 steps. So that this has slowed down the speed to 1/4 speed. And the same here, it does it the same at half, so this slows it down to half. And that's how you slow down speed, is you have to basically not make things not fire for a couple steps, and this is the way I do that, is by running through this speed function. And it gets down here at 3, it does a default, it's going to do this every step. At 4, it's going to do this every step and add a half, and this is going to do this every step. But these are only going to be done at every other step, and this is only going to be done every 4th step. And that's how all that works. That's how I update the timer here. When you go into the shot timer, that's running through this adjust speed. It takes the timer and I'm telling it to do a timer adjust, not a pass speed adjust, because number 1 was a pass speed adjust. And that's what I got going there, is a function that adjusts the time, and then we got the cell value. I don't know what else I've added in here. Oh yeah, the media player. This is new. This runs on the launch event, so when the game first launches, when it becomes active and the timer starts, it's going to load the time in the instance, or the excuse me, time in media player. And what time does is first it increments the steps. I keep a global step counter at there, and this time reset, whenever it defaults to false. It's always going to be false. In the globals, time reset is false. I don't need to show you that. You can know it. Where is it? I did put it in here, right? Yeah, right here. Time reset is equals false. In the globals, it starts off false. But if I change it in the code, which I do when I do a start game event, the game start event down here sets the timer reset to false, or to true. So then it goes in here to the globals, and when this timer thing gets run, it's going to reset the time back to 0, and then it's going to count up milliseconds. Once milliseconds equals 60, it's going to increment seconds. Once seconds equals 60, it increments minutes. Once minutes equals 60, it increments hours. And now down here, what we have is seconds and minutes are only going to display 1 digit if they're under 10. Like if there's only 9 seconds elapsed, it's just going to say the number 9 there. But if you're doing a digital clock format, you have a preceding 0 that is missing. So what this does is it checks the string length of seconds. If it's 1, it's going to add the preceding 0 digit. And it does the same thing here with minutes, and that gives me this time display code, which I can basically input anywhere in the code I want to display a timer. And that's what this time function does. The other persistent function that I've created is this, the media player. We got the create event where I'm going to add a bunch of macros, that keep track of everything. Like this is the volume gain rate or lower rate. When you click the volume up and down button, this is the rate it changes. This randomizes the soundtrack, whether or not it's going to go straight in order or random. This right here is the default, because I have 2 different audio groups. I'm using the default audio group for all my sound effects, but I'm using this soundtrack audio group for my soundtrack. The soundtrack volume is always going to be a 0 through 1, it operates on that level with the integers. So 1 would be the maximum level of the soundtrack there. We start off the default volume. The soundtrack song, this is going to correspond with the index on the soundtrack array. This could be anywhere from 0 to 10 right now because that's how many songs I have. This gets skipped if I randomize songs, but if I don't randomize songs, it's going to start on that song. The soundtrack array, you can see that it holds the song and the song title. That way, whenever I reference soundtrack array, I can get either. I can use this song right here to do code behind the scenes, like advancing songs and stuff like that, and use this in front of the scenes where I'm displaying the information about the song. And that's what I do with the soundtrack array. You need the soundtrack array link to advance the playlist. Like when it gets to the end of the playlist, when it keeps on adding one song after a song plays, eventually it's going to reach the end of that, and that's what this soundtrack array length is. It counts up it does an array length check on the soundtrack array right here, and that gives you the number so that it knows not to go past that, to restart at 0 in any counts like that. The soundtrack layer, this is the depth that all sounds on this layer or in this audio group are played at. I put it at 0 and then I adjust all sound effects around it rather than whatever. This displays the volume, and you got the volume times 100. Since volume is 0 through 1, you multiply it by 100, and that gives you a whole digit number. But you got to floor that number because you're going to have an integer. It'd be like 67.4. You want to drop that 4 and make it just 67, and this gives you a displayable volume number. Excuse me. And this right here goes back to up here. This 1 index on this array right here corresponds with this song title over here. So the display song is the soundtrack array, the song, which would be the index right here, and then the number 0 or 1 to indicate whether or not it's the title or it's the song code, whatever, song reference. Down here, we load the audio group. We check to see if it's not loaded. If it's not loaded, we load it. It's a one-time event, happens in the create at the start of the game, but you have to do that whenever you're doing an audio group that is not default. The default audio group always loads in the game, but if you create a secondary audio group, you're gonna need to load it. And this first time playing flag, this is how I break into loops, and I've talked about it in the last video, but I'm going to get into that a little bit more here right now. The old volume stores the old volume when you adjust to the new volume, or when you do mute. That's what that does. So here in the step event, what we have is this first time playing. What happens is since it's set to true over here, and it's a one-time flag to run this segment of code. And once this runs, it turns it to false, and then it will always run this section of code. And the reason you do that is because when you're breaking into a loop that is incrementing, that is constantly advancing, and you don't want it to advance on the first one, you need to break in like this. So what I have is I do the first thing. It runs. Ignore the random soundtrack because that doesn't matter for this. But it does the first player loop. It checks the song to the soundtrack array, checks if it's playing, and then it plays it. And then it flags this to where the second time around, it's just going to check the song, and it's just going to keep checking the song until it's not playing. And then once it's not playing, it's going to advance the song. It's going to check the song versus the array length. If it's over, it's going to subtract the array length from the song, which will put us back down to 0, and then it's going to restart the song. So what would happen here is if I didn't put this in like this, it's going to advance the first song. And that way, if I define a song, like if I want the soundtrack to always start on song 7, it won't. It's going to start on song 8 because it'll come in here and do this. So you need this loop. This is the way you break into an incrementing loop. Is you run it once without the increment, and then you turn off that run once to run the increments on everything else. And that's what that does. That's what I mean by breaking into a loop. I literally mean breaking into an incrementing loop. because otherwise you can just break into a regular loop, no problem. You're not going to affect anything because nothing changes with each addition to the loop. This is a keyboard click. Just it raises the song. You can look at it. It stops the current song. It advances the song, and then it plays the new song. That's all it really does. If you click the home key, delete key will do the previous song, and does the same exact thing, except it subtracts a song right here. And then if the song equals -1, because remember the array starts at 0, once it equals -1, you plus add the whole array length to that, and that'll put us right back at 10, which will be the top song in the array index. Song to play, array, it's all the same thing. It's the same loop as this, only, or the same loop as this advanced song is the previous song, only one is plus, one is minus, and the array length check is different. Okay. This mutes the soundtrack, and all it does is it takes the old volume, puts it in volume, and then it stores the new volume as 0, and then when you unmute it takes the volume and adds the old volume. So that's what that variable was in the create event, is to store the old volume when you're in mute. Sound click, all that, you see this in each one of these, all that is a little click noise to indicate that you've clicked on something. It's a little feedback to the player. Raise and lower soundtrack volume manually, so this adds a plus volume change rate as you hold down. This does not do a check press, it just does a check, because remember, they're holding this event. It's not like a mute where you just tap it once and it mutes. This, they got to hold down to make it change. So just do a check, and then it raises to the volume rate, and then it clamps the volume rate at a 0 or 1. So that way you can hold this down forever. It's still going to stop at 1 no matter what. And same with going down here. It does a negative on the volume change rate. It's still going to stop at 0 no matter what. And then I set the audio gain outside of a function. And the reason I did this is, okay, I had this put inside these functions to where the audio gain only changes when these change. But what I found was happening was some kind of glitch in either the IDE or, in GameMaker here or something, where at a certain point when I would leave a level, the volume here and the FX volume were mixing, and the two groups were becoming one, and they were playing at the same time. And I had that happening because the volume was not getting adjusted, but only at specific times. So what I've done here is I've made it to where every step, it's going to set the gain to the current volume, and that way this doesn't get out of whack. It is constantly this volume rate is not changing, so it's constantly going to be keeping at a constant volume until somebody clicks one of these buttons. And I don't know what kind of performance hit that's going to have a constant check on the set gain. All I know is eliminated my problem of having my two sound groups playing at the same time when they shouldn't have been. And I don't know what was causing that, but that's how I solved that. Display volume, you take volume, multiply it by 100, and floor it. Same thing as what you saw in the globals. Display soundtrack. That sends all that information to the UI, which gets displayed over there. You saw time, you saw bullet. I have a roll function that I'm using now. That this is kind of cool. Basically, if the dice is not defined, it does a chance on 100. Basically, you put if you have a 34% chance, so you put 34 down there, you leave dice empty, and it's going to roll. And if it's above that 34% or equals true, it should be lower, I think. I don't know. I'm not really using this for anything, but I think that should be lower. I think if chance is lower. Yeah, because yeah, you want to do lower on these, not higher. But that would be a roll, roll dice. You saw adjust speed. Game start is all the function. This is a function that I put in. Instead of just clicking go to room when I start a game, I go to this function, and this function has a room go to down here. And this way, everything gets reset for every new level. And I can now make changes into in this when I increment levels. When I add new levels, I can just change anything in here for the new level, and that way it's just a way of, you know, keeping everything together. And I have the same thing with the game end event. All it does right now is flag game over true, and that shows the menu to show the stats. But other than that, it's anything else in here that I should show? The random tip. That's all it is right there. Doesn't look like much. All that's doing is running through this array down here on a tip timer. Well, it times it. You know, every 7 seconds it goes to the next one, and then once it gets to the end, it starts over, and it just keeps on running through this. And I can add new tips whenever I create new things to the game, and they'll constantly play down there in the bottom corner. That's what that is. And basically, you know, your tip alarm equals 0. And I put all these in globals so that I can put them in a function. If you try to run a timer inside a function, you'll either need to supply it here, like tip timer up here, or you'll need to bring it in globally. And I chose to bring it in globally like this. Yeah, so this is what I've done. If this does the check on the array length of the tip array length, and if it's over, it puts it back to 0. It's the same basic thing as the soundtrack advance. Every time it does, it restarts the tip alarm, which is right now it's set at 7 seconds. And that's all that does. New wave, you don't just see, adjust speed. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, this is a one here. This is how I get rid of the grid showing. Is I have 2 different tiles that I swap between, and it's done with this code. And what this code does, and there's not a lot of literature online about grid replacement, so that's why I'm going to highlight this right here. These things right here are all optional at the end right here. If you're not supplying them, it's going to run this segment of code right down here. And what it's going to do is it's going to check the tiles layer, and this is my level room right here. You can see I've defined it as tiles 1. If you copy and paste this code to use it for your own replace, you're going to want to change this right here to match your tiles layer. Otherwise, everything else should work for you. And what it does is it checks the room width, and it does a grid width. You need to supply that coming in on a global. The grid width in my game is 32. So what this does is it checks every 32 increments all the way on the width axis. It goes all the way down, all the way to the end, every 32 pixels checking at a 0. And then once it's done that, it goes to the next thing, or it does actually, no, it doesn't do that. At the 0 point, basically x0, y0, it checks that spot, and then if it's not there, it's going to run this right, or at that spot, it runs this code where it checks that spot, and then it advances down to the whole room height, and then this moves over 1 pixel, and it checks all the way down. And then this moves over 1 pixel, but it's not going over 1 pixel. It's going over 32 because of the grid height and grid width set. And basically, we know that this I and this II are going to be the pixel locations of, this will be X and this will be Y in the room. So we can use this code, the set at pixel code, to take the old map, or put the new tile down where the old tile was. I don't. The more complicated this stuff gets, the harder it is for me to explain. But you can look at it and just copy and paste it plug it in, and you'll see that if you supplied the old tile and the new tile, it'll swap. And you get those from right here in the tile set. Those are all numbered. It starts off at 0 in this in the transparent thing here. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this 16 one right here, this is actually the grid I have in game that shows the outline. You can't tell it, but there's a soft, subtle outline here. And this is the default one up here. So it's 16 and 1 are the two that I'm swapping for my swap. So if you go in here and 16 and 1 are the ones that I'm swapping, I want to go into over here, go into controls, yeah, controls, go down here and I'll give you an example. When you hit grid, when you hit the G button, it swaps. It does a tile replace, 16 becomes 1, or if it's not true, 1 becomes 16. So that's how you use that without the X, Y, all that other stuff at the end. I don't know where I put it. Anyway, yeah, that's what the tile replace does. Is it does that. And I don't know what else I can cover in here. I think you've seen the new UI. All that is done in this right here. It's a whole lot of garbage of formatting, and I use my align right, align reset. I use that stuff. That's what all these codes were on day one. All that stuff gets used now. This decides whether or not to display the tower stats. This adds the health button. This shows the health stats. This shows the cash stat. Those are two different places. The time buttons. These are like, the forward speed and the back speed and the pause. Quite a lot. And the logo. Anyway, that's all that. I don't know why I'm showing you all that. This right here converts to seconds. This is used in a couple timers. You take the FPS and it multiplies by the seconds. So like if I put 3 in here, and the reason for this is because seconds doesn't actually mean seconds when you write that in the code, because the code doesn't operate on seconds, it operates on steps. So what you want to do is convert seconds to steps, and you do that by getting the frames per second and multiplying that by how many seconds you want. And that's what this does, is it converts any number to seconds, and I can use that like in my game start here. Right here, the spawn delay and the wave delay are both, spawn delay is 1 second, the wave delay is 5 seconds, and I use that code to define it. That's anyway. These sounds, these just play audios. I'm using these for like this is for the enemy, like the enemy death. I've got 5 different death sounds, and I have a random 20% chance to roll to get any one of those death sounds to play, and that gives a little bit of variety, that in the same way with shooting. I have 2 different shooting ones, so I do a 50% roll as to whether or not which shot sound will play. And you want that because it gets monotonous to hear the same sound. You got to give a little bit of variety in your shooting to just give a little better sound or whatever. And the walk animation, this one's kind of cool. What I did here is or the walk sound. I have 2 different walk sounds. One, the sound of one foot and the sound of the other. And then I've got them adjusted on speeds based upon doing a mod of the, checking the step versus the mod. it's just ridiculously clever. I think it's pretty cool. It slows up and speeds down how often these audio play sounds go, and it's like a click click clock sound, and I don't know. It's just pretty cool. I keep saying I don't know, but I do know. I'm showing you how I know. I don't think there's anything else to really show right now in the game. Uh, you've seen it all. I wanted to do an update, and you've seen it. You've seen the update. You heard some of the soundtrack, and you've seen some of the behind-the-scene code. I showed you the bullet, which I wanted to show because I didn't show it last time. And the Tower 2 is basically just a copy of Tower 1, except that I've adjusted all these rates right here to make them changed. Like, this makes the tower rate basically a third the speed of the default, but this gives it a 20% range increase, and this makes its damage twice as much. So that's what I did for the second tower. Anyway, I think I raised the cost right here a little bit. See, look what I'm saying. Level 6 cost is 2,500 cash. It seems like you got a lot of cash up there, but if you're going to start leveling up a lot, it's going to take up a lot of cash. So that's what I'm trying to adjust is make this a long, slow burn tower game, but to have its economy work with that, that it's a hard thing to do. I have to just keep playing it and playing it and playing it, adjusting, add something new, adjust, play. And that's all I'm going to be doing for a long time until I'm satisfied with this before I release it to anyone. And it's, I took some time looking through the tower sale on Steam, and it's like, as excited as I am about making this, it's still rudimentary, basic knowledge in the gaming environment, and does not compare to anything out there that is actually being sold. So I don't know how I could ever sell this. But it's really cool to know how it's done. It's really cool to just sit here and say I made a game. Anyway, that's where we're at in everything, and I'll come back in a couple days or a week or whatever and show you where I'm at with that then. But peace and soul.